Hello everyone, Chris with Remax Heritage Professionals, and I want to talk a little bit today about 11 mistakes that home buyers are tempted to make right now in this challenging market. So the first one is that, and I hear this a lot, buyers trying to time the market. Generally speaking, when you try to time the market, it's a losing proposition. And the reason for that is it's just very unpredictable. For example, there's a lot of people when the pandemic happened that thought home prices were going to drop dramatically and decided, even though mortgage rates were at 3%, to hold off till home prices came down. Still others, even though the mortgage rate was at 3%, wanted to hold off because they didn't want to get into the bidding wars and all of that. And so they decided to wait till home prices went down. Well, home prices never went down, not very much anyway. In fact, they're back above what they were during the pandemic. And instead of paying 3% on the mortgage rate, they're looking at 7.5%, 8% now. So that didn't work out very well for the people who decided to wait at that time. I got a lot of buyers now who are talking about waiting till mortgage rates go down. The problem with that is when mortgage rates go down, all the buyers that are sitting out the market are going to come back, which means home prices are going to go up dramatically again because there's just not the inventory to meet that kind of demand. So that's basically one of the challenges. Instead of trying to time the market, you should really try to answer these what-if questions to help you with your decision-making on whether it's a good time to buy for you. What if you buy now and prices and rates go up? You win by starting to build home equity and gaining the tax benefits that come with home ownership. What if you buy now and prices drop? You won't really feel that until you sell, which in most cases might be years down the line. So you haven't really lost it yet. In fact, I'd say that I ended up buying right before the crash of 2008, literally months before it crashed. And so I lost a lot of value initially, but by the time I sold, 10 years later, I was able to break even, and that was a once-in-a-lifetime market crash. Even if we had a crash, which I don't see happening anytime in the near future, it would not be a crash like we saw back then. The factors around the housing market are just not anywhere near what they were back then. What if you buy now and interest rates go down? You can always refinance your mortgage rate when rates get low enough that it makes sense to do so. What if you don't buy now and prices and rates keep going up? If that's the case, you might be stuck renting for a lot longer than you hope. I think when you sort of play all those scenarios out, again, everyone's situation is different and unique. The worst option is the one not buying now and prices and rates go up, which is likely what's going to happen, at least with prices. I do think rates are going to go down. Sorry. Okay, so the second challenge, mistake that home buyers are making are worrying only about mortgage payments. Mortgage interest rates are a lot higher than they were in the last year. They're more than double what they were a few years ago. And so a lot of people are overlooking the overall financial obligations instead of and just worrying about mortgage payments. One of the things you have to look at when you're buying a home is that you have to consider all the costs associated with getting approved for and owning a home. That's mortgage insurance, that's taxes, that's homeowners insurance, the cost of a home inspection. So there are other costs that you have to keep in mind, and a lot of those costs are going up as well. So mortgage rate may not be the biggest factor in determining whether it's a good time to buy. The biggest thing about that is making sure that you're prepared and you've done your research so you know what all the costs are going to be. A third mistake that a lot of buyers are making right now is they're neglecting to check their credit score. Obviously, the better your credit score, the better rate you're going to get for your mortgage. If your credit score is low, there's things you can do to try to improve it for when you are ready to purchase a home. The fourth mistake is that some buyers are making is they're buying a home too fast or sight unseen. We definitely saw a lot more sight unseen buyers happening during the pandemic. And there's a time and a place for that. Depending on your financial situation, it could be a good option for you. But the most important thing is to do your research and make sure that the home that you're about to buy is going to serve your needs for at least the next 3 to 5 years. That way, if there is a drop in home prices, typically by the time you're ready to sell, you'll have recovered that drop and you'll be in good shape when it comes to selling. The fifth mistake a lot of buyers make is they fall in love with a house they can't afford. This is why I really do insist when I'm working with a buyer and having a pre-approval in hand so we know what their maximum budget is, and we don't look at homes that are outside that budget. It's hard if you go and look at a $350,000 house and you can only afford $300,000 house. They're going to look very different, and the features those homes are going to have are going to be very different. And so it can be very hard to adjust your desires when you've seen a house you can't afford and you're looking now at the houses you can afford. So real important to have that pre-approval in hand, and then you only look at houses that you can afford. And I suggest if you're playing around on Zillow or Realtor.com, set your filter. Set that budget one as an important one. And when I set up a search for my clients, I always make sure the budget is one of the factors I'm looking at, so I'm not sending homes that they can't afford. And this ties into number 6, which is a lot of buyers don't get a pre-approval. I hear from buyers all the time, well, we want to find the house first and then we'll get pre-approved. How do you know what you can afford? You may think there's a number you can afford based on your rent payment or something like that. But maybe your credit score is not as good as you think it is, and your rates are going to be higher, and thus your payment's going to be higher. Get that pre-approval done. Know what you can afford. You don't go, if you've got a budget to buy a Ford, you don't start shopping at BMW or Mercedes dealerships, right? So know what you can afford first, and then work with your realtor to show you homes that you can afford. But get that pre-approval done first. Number 7, assuming you can't afford a new construction home. I talk to so many buyers who rule out new construction, and actually right now new construction is probably the best deals. Because builders are buying down the interest rate, not just for a 2-1 buy down. Some of them are buying down for the full life of the mortgage. I've seen builders buy down the rate to 4.99% or 5.99%, which is much better than the 7.75% that it is, or 7.5% that it's been the last couple weeks. And they're doing that. And they're also offering you money towards closing costs, sometimes even paying all of your closing costs. So you can do a lot of savings up front with that. And then when you factor in the difference in the interest rate, you could be saving hundreds of dollars a month by going with a new home, even if that home is a little more expensive than the resale. The reality is there's not much difference in the price of new homes and resales right now. So you're much better off looking at new construction. You just got to get over the fact that there's always going to be an HOA. The lots are not going to be huge. But if this is your first home, that's a great place to start. It's a great way for your kids to make friends, being in a small, tighter-knit community. It's a good way to get started in home ownership. The 8th mistake that a lot of home buyers are making is that they're considering only the house and not the neighborhood. I always recommend to my buyers to drive around the house that they're thinking of purchasing 3 times. Once during the day, once in the evening, and once late at night, to get a real feel for what the neighborhood looks like, feels like at different times of the day, so you can decide if that's a community that is going to work for you. Remember, it's not just about the house, it's about the neighborhood as a whole. In most cases, you can't move the home. You're stuck in the neighborhood, so that neighborhood is just as important as the home is. Number 9, waiving inspections or thinking I can totally fix that. yourselfer, then maybe there's some things you can do yourself. I never recommend waiving inspections. I just think it's important to know as a home buyer what you might be getting into. It's important to know how old the roof is and if it's going to need to be replaced or repaired in the next couple of years. The AC unit, what kind of plumbing there is, and if that's going to need to be replaced. Is there an old electric panel that maybe isn't going to be covered by homeowner's insurance any longer? It's so important, unless you know all those things, it's so important to go ahead and get that inspection so you can make sure all of that is covered for you, and you know at least what you're getting into. Even if you're not going to ask the seller to make any little repair yourself, that's fine. Let them know what you're getting yourself into so that you don't end up with surprises. Mistake number 10 that home buyers are making is they're failing to find out what the seller's motivation for listing is. Different sellers are going to have different reasons for listing. That can factor in how willing or motivated a seller actually is to sell the home quickly. There are some sellers that would like to sell. They'll put their home on the market, but they don't have to sell. There's not anything driving them. There's not a job in another state they got to move to, or family health issues, or changing family circumstances. There's nothing real serious driving their need to sell. Others might need to sell very quickly because they've got a job in another state they got to get to, or family illness issues, they need to be close to their family, or maybe going through a divorce or whatever. There could be real reasons why a seller needs to move on, except that's probably going to be more motivated to maybe accept this. Finally, another mistake that home buyers use is not using an experienced real estate agent. And I want to emphasize on this too that experience doesn't come from years in the real estate market. If I've been in the real estate industry for 20 years and I sell one home a year, 2 homes a year, I only sold 40 homes in my life. In my case, I've been in the real estate industry 6 years, but I've helped over 175 people buy or sell a home. The only way a real estate agent really gets experience is not by years in the field, it's by number of transactions that they've helped close. So that's a good question to ask your prospective real estate agent. How many deals have you closed in the last year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years total, whatever, to help you know whether or not the agent you're working with is truly an experienced agent. I have been across the deal from agents that will brag about being in the industry for 30 years and they don't know how to fill out a contract correctly because they do so few transactions over those 30 years. It really is important to know how many transactions your real estate agent is doing on a regular basis because that's where they gain their experience. Anyway, I hope these tips are helpful to you. You want to avoid these mistakes if you're a home buyer right now. It can be really easy to fall into them because the market is such a strange market right now. It is still a seller's market. While it's not as big a seller's market as it was a couple years ago during the pandemic, it is still a seller's market. So there's still pressures on buyers to get into a home. Keep all of these things in mind. If I can talk you through any of them or answer any questions for you in your unique situation, I'd love to consult with you, talk with you about whether home ownership is right for you, help you avoid these mistakes. And thank you for watching. And if I can help anyone buy or sell a home in Central Florida, I'd love to have the opportunity to help. Thank you very much. Have a great day, everybody.